Hey everybody, Koricon Nala here, and we've got episode 3 of Breathe. Now this one is called Safety First, and this is a spoiler discussion. We're doing spoiler discussions for each episode, so if you haven't seen episode 3, go watch it and then come back and we'll talk about it. But let's jump into it. In episode 3, we start out with Danny going back to the hospital to kill donor number 1, since he didn't succeed last episode. At first, I was a little disappointed because I was like, that was one of the things I liked about episode 2, is that he didn't try to kill him again, because that would raise too many questions. But he wasn't able to do it, and there was a nice jump scare of the nurse opening the curtain and interrupting him, and so he left. And that was the little quick moment they had in the beginning of the episode before the credits. So I was glad that he wasn't able to do it, because it would have created too many questions, and you know, you got to make it harder for Kabir to figure out that he's a killer. And again, I love the music in the opening credits. I talked about that in my spoiler-free review of episodes 1 through 4. And I like that opening sequence. I think it's great. So Danny gives up on trying to take out donor number 1 and moves on to donor number 2. And when he's got all of the pictures, this time he's looking at the faces, and it seems to be an easier decision this time. So you can tell that it's getting a little bit easier for him. He was also less nervous during the surveillance sequences and became a bit more bold about it and getting closer to the subject and, being able to be seen, which he didn't do for the surveillance of donor number 1. Then we jumped over to Kabir's story, and you can see that his alcoholism is getting worse. He's constantly thinking about alcohol now, and he has to drink every time he gets reminded of his daughter, which is pretty much all the time. And when he's in the car with his partner, they have to drive his partner's daughter to school first. And she's in the back coloring again, and then she shows Kabir her drawing. It has everybody in it, it's drawing of the family and everything. And Amit's acting in that scene, he didn't say anything. And I like that kind of acting where you don't need to say anything. It's all visual and in his face. And you can see the joy that he was getting from seeing the picture, but then the despair that kicks in right after that. And it was subtle and really great acting. I enjoyed that scene. Danny noticed that donor number 2 keeps, after getting his tea or drink of whatever it is at the cart, he goes and stands against this wall, and it's right under a ledge. And so he decides having a plant fall on his head would kill him, but it would make it look like an accident. And then they had another great little montage of him testing it out. He had a dummy. He was testing out the different heights that the plant would have to drop from. He's using math equations and physics to figure out how high it has to fall to have enough force to be able to kill him with a head wound. And again, I really like seeing the planning. I like seeing all of those little details. Then we cut back to Kabir, and he's at this political fundraiser. His police chief is trying to move into politics, and they're doing this like fundraiser party. And he's at the bar, of course, and the police chief comes over and he's talking to him. And the police chief says, "Kabir, change is the only constant thing, isn't it?" I liked that line. Change is the only constant thing. I like that. Raya shows up at the party, and she's with her artist co-worker. And the music around Kabir, everything kind of slows down around him. And he's watching her just kind of enjoy her time and laughing. It was a great way of visually showing what was going on in his head. And I liked the fact that the show does a lot of visual storytelling. You don't need dialogue for that sequence. And so Kabir goes down to talk to him. you know, and they can tell they're nervous of the fact that he's there. It's very uncomfortable. But he tells her, I'm glad that you're with him. He's good for you. And then he has a really great line. And he says, paintbrushes don't kill babies. I was like, wow, that's a powerful line. I really like the way that was written. Good stuff. Danny is watching his son sleep, and he's thinking back on a memory of them playing on the beach. And you kind of need scenes like that to remind the audience of the sympathy, of understanding why he's doing what he's doing. You don't want to get to a point where the audience loses that. And so you kind of need to remind them every now and then. So that was good. And then I found it interesting that they made him a Catholic. You know, a lot of movies and shows embrace Hinduism. And so it was a unique decision from my point of view, at least. I don't know if for you guys you see a lot of Catholicism in movies and shows, but I don't see too much of it. Sometimes the horror movies will use Catholicism for like spirits and kind of hauntings. But I found it interesting that his character was Catholic, and he does the cross and then goes to get donor number 2. And then they had a moment where he's standing there and donor number 2 turns and looks right at him and starts walking to him. And I was thinking, oh no, he noticed him. This is going to put a wrench in the whole thing. And then he walks right past him and goes over to the vendor to get a drink. That was a nerve-wracking sequence. I really liked that. Now it's raining. And that just totally thwarted Danny's plan of him standing against the wall to have the plant fall in him, because it's raining now. He's not going to be outside. And you can tell that he's getting more and more frustrated, which is adding to his psyche and making him angry now. Instead of before, he felt more like, I have to do this. Now things are moving into he's frustrated and angry that he's not succeeding. And that anger is building up. This is now making him rush. He's starting to rush in his plans, to think outside the box and think on his feet. But that's dangerous. That's really dangerous, because it adds a lot of possibilities of failure. But he has this great moment where he takes his helmet, forcing him to ride his little motorcycle scooter thing in the rain without a helmet on. But that's a mistake. And that's what happens when you try to rush your plans. But there was a great moment where he pulls the car out and the motorcycle gets into a crash. And he goes over to him and he pretends that he's mute, that he can't talk, and forces him to call the ambulance. And I like that, because they just, they're showing how he's supposed to be discovered quick enough to get him to the hospital for the organ donation. And that's a really nice running thing, that they let you know what it is, that the catalyst of how to bring somebody to discover the body. We find out Josh got moved up to number 3 on the donor list, the transplant list. Now this gives Danny a little bit of leeway. Before, he had to be pretty much perfect to get all 4 people that were left. Now he can mess up on one and he can still succeed, maybe, unless he gets caught and then he can't complete it. But it does give him a little leeway and allows the transplant to happen sooner if they can get to it. Then he goes to the funeral for donor number 2, because he succeeded this time. This is the first time he killed someone. His guilt is taken over, and he goes to the funeral. And Kabir was at the funeral as well, because he is on the case. So he goes to the funeral, and Danny and Kabir meet for the first time. They don't really talk to each other, but they're at the same funeral. So that could come into play later on. This is where the mistake comes in of him rushing his plans and taking the helmet. because the fiance of donor number 2 goes to Kabir and says, look, he would never forget his helmet. He is like really picky about safety, questions that the death was an accident. And then Kabir, it nags at him in his mind, and that whole thing, that whole transition. And so he's like, why would he forget the helmet? And so he's like testing out little things, look at stuff. Maybe we should, research this a little bit. And then he finds out that he was on this donor list. That's the connection between him and donor number 1. And he makes that connection that the donors are being killed. So now he has something to focus on. Then we cut back to Danny in the bathtub, in that scene that we saw in the trailer. Now, when I did the trailer reaction, my review part, I saw that bathtub scene. I thought that was the scene of him deciding whether or not that he was going to kill. But instead, they used it as he is now really guilty about it, and he's holding his breath underwater. And you can really see that the guilt is weighing on him, but he's trying to hold it together. The clincher at the end of episode 3 was Kabir starts to, question a little bit more and starts talking to people at the business, the guy at the front door, and finds out that the helmet was stolen, that he was trying to find where his helmet was, that he called back up to ask to the guy that was in the office if there was a spare helmet. And again, that's where Danny rushing his plans, it's now a big problem. While Kabir is talking to the doorman, this is where I have like my first kind of big problem. Something I don't like. It's not a huge problem, but it's something that I don't like. Is while he's talking to him, Kabir is thinking back on all of this stuff that was happening in the previous scenes. And so it's like a way of telling the audience all of the puzzle pieces, and he's putting them together. But I don't think you need to have those flashbacks, because they already set it up throughout the episode. And so it felt really redundant. In a way, kind of tells the audience you aren't quite smart enough to put the pieces together yourself. We have to show them to you. Now, I know that's not what they're doing, but it feels like that a little bit. I would have preferred if he was just talking to the doorman and you see in the visual acting that he's putting the pieces together. Because we know what the pieces are. We watched him discover those pieces throughout the episode. So I don't think we needed to be retold what they were. So that was a little unnecessary, but it was quick and it was near the end. I didn't mind. Now, what did you guys think? What details did you notice? What did you like? What did you not like? Let's get a discussion going on in the comments below. And all of my links to all of my stuff is in the description below, so check that out. Now, here's a little thing about Stardust. It's an app that I'm enjoying using. I need 3 more people to download it and follow me first to get on their preferred list. I'm not really worried about it if I don't get on it, but it's kind of nice because they put me in marketing materials, or I'm able to be in marketing materials, and that would be a nice little exposure thing. But yeah, it doesn't matter if I do it or not. Don't download it if you don't want it. But check this out. Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends. And I will see you on episode 4. Quick promotion, everybody. I'm having fun using the Stardust app, which allows you to make up to a 30-second reaction to movies and TV shows, and I'd love to see your reactions and put them in my videos. If you're interested in that, download the Stardust app. I've got a link to it in the description below, and make sure to follow Koricon. And whenever you make a reaction, make sure that you tag Koricon so that I get notified and can see it. Whenever I make a reaction video or a movie review and I see your video, I will take clips from it and put them in my video. If you're a YouTuber, make sure to put your YouTube channel name on your reaction if you want free promotion. And if you're a fan of my channel and just want to be in there, Great, so tag me on your reactions, and to be totally transparent and honest with you guys, when you download the Stardust app, the first person that you follow gets credit for the download. So if you want to follow me and give me credit, make sure that you follow me first. If you want to give your favorite YouTuber a credit, make sure that you follow them first. But either way, make sure that you follow me at some point and tag me in your reactions so I can get them in the videos.